And I want to start by associating the Institute with the remarks you made about the Henry Novak case and the importance of respecting the wishes of his family at this very difficult time for them. I want to ask you about the difference this change will make for people. 1 in 10 people waited more than 12 hours for care in A&E last year. The median wait for elective care is more than double what it was in 2010 when the Conservatives came to power. The average time it takes for the police to charge an offence has tripled from 2 to 6 weeks in the last 10 years. So how will scrapping the public sector equality duty help improve those problems?
It will stop public officials from wasting their time on a lot of things that have nothing to do with delivering frontline services. That's how.
But I think you would accept, would you not, that the amount of time and money spent on EDI initiatives is in relative terms very small. For example, total police spending in 25-26 was just under £21 billion. And so you would be only freeing up less than 0.5% of that budget by stopping spending the money.
So it's quite important that we don't allow this to be just paperwork. The second, third, fourth order consequences of the way the people are carrying out their jobs is wasting a lot of time and money. We've estimated that it's about £420 million, but that's just on the public activity. How much have the Nottingham murders cost us? How much have the Southport murders cost us? Because they don't count the consequences as, in that way. If you look at the actions and the loss of trust, this is costing us billions. We need to get people focused on delivering their core functions. I've just given you an example of how even the social care funding formula was something that was questioned. I was the Equalities Minister at the time. Most people would just have backed down and said, well, that's what we're supposed to do. Even the officials don't know how to carry out their duty. It's not just that we're hiring lots of people to do this and carry out equality impacts assessments. They are spending a lot of time not focused on the job. HS2 has cost more money because of these, the public sector equality duty. It's not just policing, and the private sector looks at the public sector and copies. We will save a lot, but there is no price that I'm going to put on rebuilding trust.
So the protection from direct and indirect discrimination, which is provided by the Equality Act, which you say we should rely on, is retroactive, isn't it? So whereas the public sector equality duty puts a requirement on public authorities to consider individuals' differences in advance, and is specifically about working towards equality of opportunity rather than outcomes. So if you remove the public sector equality duty, don't you risk disadvantaging the most vulnerable people who will find it hardest to use the Equality Act to challenge instances of discrimination, because you remove the incentive for public services to think about their needs in advance, because they aren't the ones who are going to challenge?
No, I completely disagree. The Equality Act should be a shield protecting people from discrimination, not a sword for people to look for the opportunities to create.
But that does rely on people being able to use that shield.
Yes, but the shield is there. The public sector equality duty is not the shield. It's doing something completely different. The Equality Act has Section 18, I can't remember which one specifically. Section 18, for example, protects pregnancy and goes into a lot of detail about that. I heard Liz Kendall this morning saying that if we got rid of the public sector equality duty, then pregnant women wouldn't be protected. This is nonsense. That's not how it works. And the fact that I, as Equalities Minister, was constantly having to explain to people what the duty meant and how they should go about it was a waste of my time. It was not just a waste of my time. It shows that everybody is getting it wrong. I have trust in people. I don't believe the public service is full of lots of racist and people who don't care about disability, and unless they're giving this box to tick, they're not going to do that. I don't believe that. And we should stop enshrining that belief. It is making, and I say this listening to other ethnic minorities, especially young people, it makes them feel that every white person is racist and it's only the law that is protecting them. That is not what our country is. We need to change the culture. We need to sweep all of this stuff away. It is not getting better. The law of diminishing returns is applying to these regulations. We need to get back to the core function of public services, frontline delivery.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can see I'm very exercised about this. I am the country's longest-serving equalities minister. So there is a lot that I've seen and a lot that needs to change. But now I'm happy to take questions from the media. Cardin from ITV.
Thank you very much. I suppose people who support some of these measures would argue that in order to treat people equally, you have to be able to take account of their differences. And that means not treating them in exactly the same way, because you have to take account of disabilities, levels of understanding, and perhaps in some cases the degree to which they have trust in the public authorities that are dealing with them. Aren't you removing the requirement to take account of people's differences?
No, not at all. In fact, we're making it easier and better because what we're bringing back is common sense. The public sector equality duty has put rapists in women's prisons. That is not common sense. You don't need a duty to tell you to take account of differences. Quite often, differences are obvious. We don't need the protected characteristic of age and the public sector equality duty to tell us not to treat children in the same way that we treat adults. What is happening is that people have stopped thinking and are just trying to follow the process so they don't get into trouble. I want people to bring their judgment back. If you don't have good judgment, you shouldn't be in the job. If you need a box to tell you not to put a rapist in a woman's prison, or actually the box is telling you to do that, then something has gone horribly wrong. So what I am bringing back is common sense. Next question, Ali Fortescue from Sky News.
Hiya. Ali Fortescue from Sky News. Can I just be really clear on the point of principle here? Do you accept the principle that some people do need to be treated differently, some people from different groups need to be treated differently for there to be fairness? Can I just get a yes or no on that? And can I also ask, you're someone who previously talked about becoming working class after working at McDonald's. You just then said that we need to treat people as individuals, not part of a group. How far do you take that? Does that include language and labels around class?
Right, okay. So the first question is, do I believe that people need to be treated differently in certain circumstances? Yes, but the principle remains the same, that equality under the law. One of the things that I try to explain is that we are not creating a hierarchy of groups. A black man and a white woman are equally cared for by the Equality Act. It's the public sector duty that asks people to start making various adjustments. Common sense can fix this. Of course, there are incidents of racism, but you don't need to ask the police to accept as a fact anyone saying this is racist, irrespective of what is in front of them, irrespective of the circumstances, because you wouldn't do that if it was if the individuals were different. That's what I'm saying. Let's bring equal treatment back. Of course, if someone has cancer, we're not going to treat them in a hospital like someone who doesn't have cancer. But you don't need the Equality Act to tell you these things. This is what I'm saying, that we have retreated into such a place that we don't even have the confidence to apply things that are obvious. And on the point of labels, as it stands, the Act does not have class as a protected characteristic. But I actually published a report, as I said in the speech, that talked about how white working class boys were disadvantaged. You don't need laws to tell you to think about these things. You should just know. We should just know. Alex Forsyth from the BBC.
Thank you very much. You've just said you don't need to think about this stuff, you should just know. What would you say to the people that are listening to you today and think, if you don't put this duty on public bodies to actively think about it, what you might be doing is damaging the cause of people who have faced discrimination for decades? And can I ask, when you were in government, did you suggest this should be scrapped?
So I would say to those people that the Equality Act protects your rights, but we need to make sure that we do not create a society where people retreat into groups. We are seeing separatism in our country occur because different people are being treated differently. And when you have that, there will be a backlash. I made this comment to people who were promoting the Black Lives Matter movement, that if you keep saying this, We're going to get other people who say, well, I want to talk about white lives. And now we have both. That hasn't brought anybody together. So I'm not saying that there is a perfect solution. I am saying that this is the best way for us to remove discrimination from the law while still protecting equality under the law. And that is something that I will continue to fight for. No, I did not ask to remove the PSED. I kept trying to explain to people how to make sure they complied with the law in the Equality Act. And after writing thousands of letters, I've decided that people just need to have this public sector equality duty removed, because when I tried to get them to think more carefully and sensibly about it, they ignored it. So now we're just going to get rid of it, and that should fix the problem. Catherine Forster, GB News.
Thank you. So much focus rightly on the appalling death of Henry Novak, but the Nottingham inquiry concluded yesterday with the message that they had been failed at all levels. But we do know that one of the psychiatrists had resisted sectioning Calicaine because she was worried about the overrepresentation of black men with schizophrenia in institutions. What's your message to people who feel queasy about what you are suggesting, given some of those facts? And also, if I may, what is your response to the horrific attempted murder yesterday in Belfast, the police saying that a Somalian man in his 30s now under arrest for attempted murder? Thank you.
Thank you. So on the Nottingham murders, what I would say is that this is exactly the sort of situation that we're trying to prevent. If you have mental health issues and you need to be sectioned and you need to be detained, you should be sectioned, you should be detained. No one should be counting how many other black people have been sectioned or detained and say, well, this is too much, so we'll let you go. That is a complete absence of common sense. And we need to bring the common sense back. This is what I am pushing for. We know that there will be some cases where people are discriminated against. There are powers in the Equality Act to deal with that, whether you're white or black. Let's use those, but not this duty that basically tells people to ignore things that need to be dealt with. On Belfast, I've seen some grainy images. Again, I'm absolutely horrified. It is a horrific incident. I haven't heard anything about who the attacker might have been, but I think a lot of people will start wondering yet again, is this someone who should not have been in our country? Have there been failings around our borders? I would urge the police to bring the facts out as quickly as possible so that we can get some clarity. But it is yet another reminder that we do need stronger borders. This is why it is Conservative policy to leave the Convention on Human Rights. That's why we have a borders bill. It's been 2 years. The Prime Minister has not smashed any gangs or stopped any boats. This is a problem. I don't know if that person was someone who came in via that route, but today I'm talking about rebuilding trust with the public and their trust in public institutions. One of the ways that we are failing the public is by making them think that we have not got a grip on crime, on borders, on managing dangerous and difficult people in our society. And we need to show them that we get it and that we can solve these things quickly so that lives are saved and crimes are prevented. Andy Bell, Channel 5.
Thank you very much, Andy Bell, 5 News. In a society where inequality of outcomes is at least a fact, isn't the duty that you're scrapping, couldn't that be a mechanism to improve that, and you're simply giving that up?
No, because the duty is already creating inequality of outcomes. It's already creating inequality of outcomes, and it is also destroying trust in institutions. I have lived in 3 continents. I lived in one where nobody trusted the institutions at all. It's very, very horrible. You need people to be able to understand that if you go to the police, they're going to do the same thing, whether you're a black person or a white person. They're going to do the same thing, whether you're old or young, gay or straight. That's what we need. Of course, there will be circumstances around your identity that should be taken into account. But you don't need the police or the NHS to have it written to such an extent, as we saw in the case of Henry Novak, where an accusation, a mere accusation of racism, was taken more seriously than Henry saying that he had been stabbed. That cannot be right. Jason Groves, Daily Mail.
Thank you. A couple of things. Is this it on the Equality Act, or are there other aspects of it that you've got in your sights? And With the situation at the moment, do you think the police can be trusted to deal properly with racially charged incidents?
So the answer to that question is yes. I do think that most frontline police officers are good people. I think a lot of the issues have actually been with the senior police chiefs. They were the ones who I spoke to, and they were the ones who told me, Kemi, you don't understand, we really are institutionally racist, and then could not explain exactly how they were. I feel for a lot of frontline police officers, even the ones in the Novak case who made some very serious mistakes, which they need to, which need to be investigated and looked at. We need accountability. But when I look at police officers like Martin Blake, who was doing his job and then ended up being dragged through long public inquiries and exonerated. When I see police officers who say that they're not going to carry arms, the armed police officers, because they're worried about their lives and careers being ruined for doing what they know that they need to do, I worry. We need to look after the police as well. I'm very concerned about police welfare. So this is not an anti-police speech. It's actually pro-police, because I want to free them to be able to do their jobs without worrying about box ticking or compliance on issues that are not core to the function of saving lives and catching criminals. There will be more coming. I announced a Culture and Integration Commission. This is one of the pieces of work that has come out of it. I've been looking at this for years, and there is a lot that needs to be done. I think that we are at risk of separating. We look at Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, they're all run by parties that want to break up the United Kingdom. So this isn't just about the Equality Act, this is about lawfare. And when I was elected leader of the Conservative Party, I said that we are going to unpick all of the lawfare that has grown and is stopping us from looking after patients, to catching criminals, to even getting houses built. We need to fix a whole bunch of things, but we also need to make sure that we promote British culture and one shared British identity. Ben Clatworthy, The Times.
Thank you. Kemi, you say that more black boys should be searched if it means more black lives will be saved. But is there not a risk that that will inflame tensions from a group who already feel that they're subject to more stop and search? And do you believe that, therefore, there should be quotas?
No, I don't believe in quotas. I never have, and I never will. But there will be, as I said at the beginning of the speech, some people who will feel uncomfortable. But the truth is that when black boys are searched more knives are found. The incidence of knife carrying is higher. So we can't leave people to carry knives because we think that we've searched enough people for today, because that means someone else's life gets lost. And the people who tell me more than anyone that they want stop and search are the mothers of young black boys who have been killed by their peers. They are killing each other. They're not going to look for people from other communities to kill. The carrying of knife crime harms the knife carrier's community before it harms all others. I want to save those lives. I want to save the people who are most at risk, whatever their background. And if that means doing some tough stuff, then I'm going to do some tough stuff. I'm not going to run away from an outcry and allow other people's children to be killed just so I can have a quiet life. That is not fair. Martina Betts from The Sun, please.
Thank you very much. Martina Bett from The Sun. Earlier this morning, you said that the National Black Police Association shouldn't exist. Do you think that all staff networks based on race, gender, sexuality in public service should be abolished? And why is that? And just quickly, you spoke a lot about restoring common sense. Sir Sadiq Khan blocked a deal with Palantir and the Met Police because he said that the company did not share the city's values. Is that an example of how ideology is basically being prioritized over getting results? Thank you.
On the Palantir question, yes, absolutely. All we should care about is how many lives are we saving in the NHS, not whether Palantir agrees with Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan has a lot of values that I don't share, and many other Londoners don't share. I think he should be focused on doing his job. And on the issue of identity groups, particularly in the public sector, I didn't say that they shouldn't exist. I don't like them, but I want to be very clear what the principle is. I believe in freedom of association. And if you are black police officers and you want to hang out together and go to the pub or play tennis, that's fine. But should you organize within the police and start changing policy on the basis of your race? No. And the way I know that that is not the right answer is because if you swapped the races and if you had the White Police Officers Association and said that they should start making policy for white people in the police, I think everyone would be up in arms. Certainly the usual suspects would be up in arms. We need to treat these groups differently. I don't think that we should stop people from wanting to hang out with other women and so on. I've been someone who believes very much in freedom of association. But the public sector is paid for by taxpayers. It's paid for by everyone. They should be serving everyone, not splitting themselves into groups. And that is why I don't think those identity networks in the civil service or the police should have any say in public policy or how those organizations are run. Only the people which politicians appoint to those bodies should be doing that. So I've still got a few more people. I've got David Williamson, Nick Guttridge, Noah Hoffman, Amelia Casaliccio, and Ben Quinn. So David Williamson, please.
Thanks so very much. Incredibly, we're almost 10 years away from the moment when Theresa May made her speech about burning injustices. And she said then, if you're black, you're treated more harshly by the criminal justice system than if you're white. Do you think those injustices have been tackled, or rather, we've seen such a decline in the criminal justice system that simply people from all backgrounds are now suffering injustices? And just on another note, the acting legend that Idris Elba has said of James Bond, let's not try and make it woke, and suggested that some markets might not prefer a non-traditional Bond. Would you like to see someone from a different background playing 007?
So I agree with Idris Elba that we should not make James Bond woke, because that will ruin the entire franchise. But it is for the writers and the people who own the rights to make that decision, and then the public will deliver their verdict in terms of ticket sales. That's the way, I believe in capitalism. That's the way that it should work. On your question about Theresa May, I wish she had spoken to me about this at the time, because I think I might have framed some of what she said differently. I do believe that everyone suffers injustice. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. I do think that if you are an ethnic minority or any kind of minority, it is the fact of being in a minority that means that you are probably more likely to experience something that the majority group does not, whatever minority you are. That is a fact. That is why we have an Equality Act. That is why those laws are there, to prevent discrimination. But when you have public bodies then going beyond preventing discrimination to achieve outcomes and try and do something different and accept any mention of racism as true without examining the facts, that is a problem. And what I'm doing is changing the Conservative Party so that we start with the principles first, rather than start with the intention first. The principles are equality under the law. Disparities and differences in outcome are not necessarily racism. They might be, but if you jump to racism or whatever ism as the first rather than the last reason, you tend to actually create more problems. And the third is that when an institution has failed, let's not try and pull it down and destroy it. It's very hard to build institutions. Let's try and bring trust back by fixing those institutions. Those are the principles which we are starting with now. And when people understand that, they will understand why we have the policy, not just the policy in isolation. Nick Guttridge, Daily Telegraph.
Great, thank you. Could I ask on a slightly different one? We've reported on a government report this morning which shows that between 2015 and 2021, almost £30 billion of taxpayers' money went to Britain's enemies. This was COVID support and foreign aid predominantly, and those enemies were people like Islamic State, Russia, companies linked to the Chinese military. As taxes and state spending continue to go up and up, does it show there's a bit of a danger that ministers and officials are too naive about how taxpayers' money is being spent and where it is ending up? And should we be more wary in future of these sort of large grants programmes?
I think we should always be wary of large grants programs and large spending. We are spending far too much as a country, and we're not making as much money as we used to. We're becoming less wealthy. So we do need to tackle that. But this is actually related. It's not a different issue. It is related to what I'm talking about. I was in the Treasury as a junior minister when we were implementing the policy. I didn't own that policy area, but I had to answer a lot of questions in Parliament. I was asking about fraud in the department. The questions in Parliament were not about fraud. They were asking why, how many women were getting these bounce-back loans, how many ethnic minorities were getting the bounce-back loans, why have black people been left out. The focus of our politicians as well has been in the wrong area. And perhaps if more people had been asking questions around probity and fraud and checks and balances, we wouldn't have had the appalling situation which you've just described. This issue, going back to Hannah's question, this issue is not just about how much money we spend on paperwork. With the amount of time that we are spending thinking about these things means that other real big issues are being neglected. And I want us to get back to core functions. Thank you. Noah Hoffman, Spectator.
Thank you. I know you don't like to encroach too much on the private sector, but on principle, what is your view on schemes, job schemes where only certain groups can apply, whether that's based on race or class, etc.? And very quickly, just off the back of the Theresa May comment, can you guarantee to the room and people watching that the entire Tory party, every MP currently in the party is with you on this policy and on this position on identity politics?
Right. So, sorry, I've forgotten the first half of your question.
Just like grad schemes where you have to be so-and-so to apply.
They are illegal. They are illegal. You're not allowed to discriminate. Positive discrimination is illegal. But positive action, where perhaps you might just want to encourage more people from various backgrounds to apply, is not. But that doesn't mean that you should hire someone because of their skin color. That is illegal. And this is one of the things which I was trying to explain, that many people don't understand the difference between positive action and positive discrimination. It is another area that we are looking at. But actually hiring people on the basis of skin color, even if you mean well, is illegal in the private sector. There are loads of companies that have been taken to tribunals, often by white people who have been discriminated against, rightly, and they've had to pay a lot of money to compensate. And this is why I say we're not getting rid of the Equality Act like Reform wants to. I don't even know what their policy is. They change it every 5 minutes. But they've now said they're abolishing the Equality Act. If they abolish the Equality Act, then it will become legal to discriminate against people, white or black. That's why we're not doing it. On the second question about whether the party agrees with me, the party knows where I stand on this issue. Today is not the first day that I've been talking about this, and I have said which direction we're going. It's this or nothing. I've said that we're signing a contract about the agenda we're taking into government, because I want everybody to understand what it is we're going to deliver. If there is a Conservative MP who does not believe in equality under the law or wants different treatment for different groups on the basis of skin color or protected characteristics, then they probably are not a Conservative MP. So they're probably something else. I believe that everyone in my party is with me, and if they're not with me now, then they will not be with me at the next election. Emilio Castellacci, if I'm saying that right.
Probably, yeah, don't worry. Thank you very much. You talked about how the Henry Novak case shouldn't be politicised. What are your thoughts about the way that Elon Musk has been going about talking about it, and the way that the debate has generally been fueled on Twitter? And similarly, what did you think about the intervention from the US Vice President on it last week?
So I think that, Twitter is a terrible place for having a civilized conversation. We all have to use it, politicians and journalists in particular. The parents have asked for it not to be politicized. Some people will. I've seen people even criticize the parents, saying it's not about you, it's about the rest of us. That's completely wrong. I disagree with the US Vice President's remarks, and I told him so actually. We need to stop jumping to the conclusion that verifies the beliefs that we already had. And even I, someone with very strong beliefs, I do challenge myself. I don't immediately assume that what I think must be the reason. We talked about the Belfast case. I have my suspicions, but let's wait until the facts come out. That's how you don't politicize, and actually trying to work together. I'm not blaming any particular party for this. I think that we just need to change the culture across the board, and we should be able to work cross-party on this issue. Common sense is not a left or a right-wing thing. And finally, Ben Quinn from The Guardian.
Thank you. Can I just pick up on Martina's question? And you were very clear you believe in freedom of association. Should public bodies continue to afford staff networks time off to organise and even use their property for that type of organisation? And secondly, if I may, you've raised the prospect of a civil war potentially happening at some stage in the UK in the future. What would you say to someone going about their business on the lovely streets of Saffron Walden this morning who's worried about that? What will the civil war look like if we don't head it off?
Okay, so starting with staff networks, I think that they should not be given time off to carry out these activities. My experience of staff networks in the civil service was that they were actually a way for some people to create a clique or a cabal who were then furthering their own personal careers at the expense of other servants, and the staff networks ended up being bad for some of their colleagues. I even saw in some cases bullying of other people who didn't share their views. So staff networks should not be anything more than social organizations. People can go to the pub or play sports or do other things outside work time. We are not, as taxpayers, paying civil servants to deal with their own self-actualization and sorting out their personal hobby horses. So I don't like them. I think they're very problematic. I think the senior civil service have not just failed to get a grip, they've actually encouraged it because it was a way of ticking boxes. And there are many good civil servants, many good civil servants who don't like this, but no one speaks for them. I am speaking for them now. And the civil war comments you refer to were in an interview, much longer interview that I gave to the BBC. And the point I'm trying to make is not that we're on the cusp of a civil war, no, far from it, but that you sow seeds which end up sprouting very further along in the future, much further along, if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. And when you look at countries that have had civil wars, it is always, almost always, around identity. I grew up, my childhood was spent in a country where everybody looked like me. And people still found differences because there were 300 different ethnic groups, people spoke different languages, they had very different cultures that are probably imperceptible to those who were not living in that country. That's what I'm talking about, that we have to make sure that we are not doing things that seem nice or fun or easy now and creating bigger problems for our children tomorrow. I think about my children when I think about these policies. They are half black and half white, and I want them to feel that they can be both, that they don't need to choose, that no one is going to be judging them because they look like their mother or their father, but they'll be judging them as individuals. And that is a principle that I think all of us, whatever our political views, must share.